I am so excited to be joining you for your legendary tour today. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for the invitation. And don't hold me to anything here, but anyway, I'm so happy to be doing this for the university. I've been doing it for 20 years and absolutely love the opportunity to walk and talk about the history of Drake and share some great stories about the people who made the university what it is today. I like to call it the names that live at Drake. And of course, here we are standing in front of Old Main, our oldest and most beautiful building, to be sure. I think you probably know a little bit of the history of Drake, but we were founded in 1881 by Francis Marion Drake, who gave us the seed money, and George Carpenter, who became our first president and chancellor of the university. Drake wouldn't have been what it is today without them having the presence of mind to come to Des Moines and start this amazing school. So this building was built in 1881, the year that it was founded, and just surrounding this area is all kinds of history, starting with how we became who we became. So why don't we begin by walking over to Chancellor's Elm, and I'll tell you a little bit about how it all came to pass.
Okay, well, tell me a little bit about the story behind this.
Well, this is one of my favorite stories about the origins of Drake. As legend has it, George Carpenter came to Des Moines and he was looking for the perfect spot to build his university. So he happened across this bit of land and happened on a beautiful, majestic elm tree right here, and climbed to the top, looked around, and he said, "This is where we will build our university." And for a great many years, Chancellor's Elm stood as the symbol of the greatness of Drake. Unfortunately, it succumbed to Dutch elm disease in the 60s, and what remains is what we placed here, a rock to commemorate the spot, and it has a little legend all of its own. And the tradition is called the Kissing Rock. And as legend goes again, although it's an up-to-date legend, sweethearts come to the campus, they come to the spot, they kiss supposedly at midnight, they have become engaged here, they used to get pinned here, lavaliered. It's just a very special place on campus. And the tradition has continued as close as last year, when Student Alumni Association had an actual Kissing Rock event here to continue to keep the stories alive.
Very cool. So where are we headed next?
Well, let's head over to the Maddie Love Lane, another great story.
Perfect. So, tell me about Maddie Love Lane.
Oh, it's another wonderful story. Oh, I guess you're going to be hearing that from me the whole time. They're all great stories. Anyway, Maddie Love is probably the most beloved benefactor to Drake, at least in recent history. Amazing story about her. She was an Ohio State graduate, had nothing to do with Drake, and then years ago, back in the late 80s, she was asked to become involved in the university as a trustee. She joined the trustees, and then President Ferrari at that time asked her to chair our major capital campaign for the university, and she did. And she chaired 2 major campaigns for the university, both of which raised over $100 million, which made her the only woman in the United States that headed a campaign that raised more than $300 million. Wow. So she actually helped change the face of the university.
So, this lane is named after her, so what's the story behind the lane?
Well, that's the funny part, because Maddie was a very funny person. She would even end all of her telephone voicemail messages with "have a fun day." And so she was elderly and had a little trouble getting around. And to make life easier, she had a small yellow bug, and she always drove it up this sidewalk and parked it right to the side of Old Main. And so not only is she a wonderful tradition at Drake, and did she do so much, but the car itself, being parked right in the heart of campus, became a funny story and fun tradition. So it seemed only fitting at the end of our last campaign that she chaired in 2002, when you're looking for how to celebrate a woman who has done so much for Drake. We named this little lane Maddie Love Lane, so we would always hold close to our heart her great story and her car.
That's so great. Are there any other streets that are named off of famous Drake supporters?
Yeah, actually, just within the last couple of years, another street, part of Forest, has been named for Paul Morrison, who has done so much for athletics and just celebrated his 96th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, it's terrific.
All right, well, where to next?
Alumni House, my new favorite place to be on campus.
Great. This home is so beautiful. Can you tell me just a little bit about the history behind it?
Absolutely. It's a very important house to the university, and as usual, there's a great story behind it. It was built in 1901 by Bayard Craig, who was a chancellor at Drake.
I'm not familiar with Craig, Chancellor Craig. Can you tell me a little bit about him?
A little. I don't know too much about him other than he built this place and that he was married to Mary Carpenter, who was the daughter of George Carpenter. And Mary eventually gave this house to the university and became the first dean of women at the university. So her name is very important, and of course Carpenter Hall, the residence hall, is named for not George Carpenter, but Mary Carpenter. So back to the story about this particular home. It has housed many things at Drake. First and foremost, years ago, it was the home of several presidents. President Morehouse lived here, and President Harmon, as well as the Craigs. And then President Harmon moved to 37th Street when we got a beautiful Tudor home off campus where every president has lived since 1941. In addition to being the home of the president, it's served a number of other roles. It has been the Chi Omega house for many years, so it was a sorority house, and we've enjoyed people coming through telling us stories about where they lived upstairs and how their dates picked them up and things like that. So great stories there. And it's also housed our international office, and most recently, until this year, it was a home for 8 to 10 years of the American Judicature Society. It was rented, so to speak, to this society because of our relationship with another benefactor, Dwight Alperman, a name who definitely lives on at the university. He wanted to have the American Judicature Society housed at the university, so he spent approximately $800,000 to bring this back to its former grandeur and to bring the American Judicature Society here to Drake. Within the last year, they decided to go elsewhere, and it made the house open for some campus organization. And it was decided that the Alumni Association would live here. And so this is probably the most exciting thing, the very most exciting thing that's happened for alumni, because it's a place that our visitors can come, call home, we can reconnect with people, and our alumni staff works here. We moved in January of 2014, and it's we think it's fair to say that it's changing the scope of how we associate with our alums and how we relate to them and build relationships. So it's just a terrific place, and like I said, it has some very important history behind it. It's beyond everything that we had hoped for, and we plan to make very good use of it, of the space. Yeah,
That's
thanks.
great.
Thanks.
Where are we headed to next?
Well, another one of my favorite places. Are you getting sick of hearing that? Helmick Commons, another wonderful name that lives at this university, and more spots to share with you.
Great.
Wow, what a beautiful big space on campus. Why aren't there any buildings here?
Well, it is beautiful, and I can tell you, it didn't used to look like this. Not even close. Talk about why there's no buildings in a second, but let me just tell you about this whole part of campus, which we like to think of as the student part of campus, and definitely a meaningful part of student everyday university life. This used to be called Hubble Field in my day, and actually until about 2002 it was called Hubble Field, and the reason why is that it was just outside of Hubble Hall, the dining hall, so the area was named for that, and it was just a huge, vast, empty field, and it looked like a Russian tundra. You froze to death walking across. It was ugly. Having said that, there was a remarkable man who was a trustee and a graduate of Drake, Robert Helmick. Bob Helmick graduated in 1957, but his story goes way beyond that because he grew up on campus. His parents were teachers at Drake. His father was a physics professor. His mother taught math. They taught a total of something like 43 years at the university. And Bob and his sisters and brother grew up right where Meredith Hall sits, so right on the corner of 28th and Carpenter. And this area was virtually his playground. And it meant so much to him. It was inspirational. And so back in about 2000, right around then, Bob said to President Maxwell that he would really like to beautify this area. It had so many acres, and so he gave us the seed money to regrade it, put lighting in, new sidewalks, and he charged us, the alumni and development, the development staff, to raise money to put in plazas and gardens and such so that the students could enjoy it. And so that was our charge, and we went out and raised money, and so we're surrounded by 7 ancillary projects that make up Helmick Commons. The area around the quads was redone. Branson Plaza was put in, and that was lots of money raised in honor of a young man who lost his life. Wells Fargo Pool, and the Agora, Craigie Newell Agora, which is right over here, an interesting story that I'll share with you about that. And then Helmick Courtyard, right outside of Harvey Ingham, which is named for the whole Helmick family, because all the Helmick children went to Drake. So that's the really short version. The slightly expanded version is that Bob, as I said, this meant the world to him. He worked very hard to put it all together, and he said that one of the things we had to promise is that this would always be for students, and that no buildings should be allowed to go up here. And so that's part of the deal. We will keep that promise, and it will be for the students to enjoy forevermore. Now, in addition to that, and very sadly, Bob was, we were planning to dedicate this spot at Relays of 2003, and he and several of us were working on the dedication and bringing back all the people who had given to this area, and he had a stroke about 11 days before the dedication and died. And so unfortunately, he never got to see what the students have enjoyed, but he saw it finished enough that I think he realized the impact that he made on the university.
Well, yeah, it's certainly a beautiful space and used by so many students, so I'm sure he is very proud of how it turned out.
Yeah, and with the Agora, we have weddings there, and the students, the class of 1996, I sort of like this story because they wanted to do a senior project, and they wanted a gathering spot for students, and they came up to people in our office and said that they'd like to do an Agora. And so we said, okay, we'll see if we can help raise the money. And it took us quite a few years, but we ended up raising the money thanks to a philanthropic alum who was of Greek descent, so they liked the idea of calling it an Agora. So Liz Newell said, sure, let's build an Agora.
That's great. Okay, where should we head to next?
Well, I think the next stop ought to be, we ought to do something with the arts and go over to Turner Jazz.
Sounds great.
Super. Oh, this is another fabulous fun spot at the university.
Well, tell me a little bit about this space.
Well, this is the Turner Jazz Center, and if you can see the sign in the background, Patti's Place, named for the wife of Fred Turner, who was a lover of music and jazz. Fred was a graduate of the university and was the former CEO and president of McDonald's Corporation. He's the guy that made it all happen for McDonald's, really. All their success can be directly attributed to him. Patti, his wife, who he adored, had a deep love for jazz and music, as did Fred, and so he wanted to do this in her honor. And so we're glad to be the benefactors of that.
That's great. So what is Drake's connection with jazz?
Well, it's a multiple story. We've always had a wonderful jazz program, and we have an amazing professor, Andy Klassen, with the jazz program. He's the Turner professor. But this is the best and most perfect example of what a new Capitol building can do for a program. And what happened here at Drake is that the minute it was funded, it was, as Andy said, it was like fish jumping into a boat. So we had all these wonderful students now electing to come to Drake because of the amazing sound system, because of this amazing building that they could perform in. So that was one of the reasons that we have a great affection for jazz at Drake. Secondly, is that President Maxwell, who's been here for 15 years, is a great lover of jazz and blues, and that came from his father, who was a famous jazz trumpet player who played with the Benny Goodman Band and also was first trumpet for the Johnny Carson show, way before your time, I realize. So when David took this position as the president, he brought his love for music here, and so when he spoke with Fred Turner about this, Fred jumped at the opportunity, and also David gave his father's collection of trumpets and such to the university, and so now the legacy will continue.
That's so great.
Yeah, we're
Diane,
very excited.
It's been so great chatting with you about all the places on campus and learning about their wonderful stories. It's been just a pleasure.
Well, it's been my pleasure, I can assure you. I love this place, and I love bragging about it.
That's great.
Thanks.
Thank you.